Now, this was inevitable. It's primarily because Americans don't push back. Some people not taking it. I think they said it's like 75% or something. And this is what I talked about last time. Eventually the carrot on the stick eventually just becomes the stick. And so Joe Biden just recently said this.
I will sign an executive order that will now require all executive branch federal employees to be vaccinated, all. And I've signed another executive order that will require federal contractors to do the same. If you want to work with the federal government and do business with us, get vaccinated. If you want to do business with the federal government, vaccinate your workforce.
And so basically, this is where America is at. And it's primarily because American men are not yet ready to do what needs to be done. And I've always been a proponent of the ability to have a discussion between individuals, or whether it's parties, groups, etc. But the moment men can no longer come to a logical agreement, whatever it may be in life, the moment another man wants to exert his will upon you, then the answer always becomes violence. It doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what station in life that person has. Problem is that many today have just not felt the pain yet, but they will. There will be many who will feel the pain. Some people are like, well, we're gonna wait this out, we're gonna stick it out. Some people are like, we're just not gonna take it, we're going to walk away from the job. But the government and the people who have already sided with the federal government are already in a position where they've been planning for this for quite some time. When it comes to food and resources, protection, the many people who talk about, we need to black the blue, or a lot of you people who are pro-military, our boys out there fighting. Those are the same people that are going to come knocking on your doors and be like, you got any unvaccinated down there? The very same people that you sit here and you foolishly praise, or the people complain about, oh, we left our people over there. It's like, fuck them. They're not my people. Those are not my people. And in fact, most of these military individuals, and I've said this in another video, that when it comes to infantry, they don't pick these individuals based on their ability to critically think. They pick them based on their ability to shut up and follow orders. That's what many of the Nazi soldiers said. They're like, I'm just following orders. I was just following orders. And of course, during the Nuremberg Code trials, most of these individuals were put to death. They weren't willing to accept that as a reason for the atrocities that they were willing to commit. And so when you look at the Taliban and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing all these things. They're putting all these people to death. And I said, think about yourself a year from now, where people are going hungry. They're not able to get a job. And the government is forcing them to take a medication that doesn't do what it says it's going to do, right? It's an article coming out of here from Israel. There's another article talking about Israel struggling with COVID-19 despite high vaccination rates. And of course, coming out of Australia, what Australia can learn. And it goes on to state, it says rates of hospitalizations and ICU admissions are also increasing, with almost 1,100 people currently in the hospital and nearly 700 seriously ill. And there's all the people that told you, you can take it, it's perfectly safe, 99, 91%, 95% effective at fending off a virus. And they keep pushing this upon the people more and more and more. It says Israel shot to an early lead in the race to vaccinate, inoculating almost 80% of its citizens aged 12 and over by June. Vast majority, of course, with the Pfizer vaccine. Right? And so they're having more cases now than ever before. Having more cases now, year to date, than last year where there was no vaccine. In fact, every country that you look at has more hospitalizations, has more deaths, has more cases. And so the question is how far are American men willing to go? Because the women are not going to solve this problem. The women are not going to go out there and shoulder their rifle. This is a problem that needs to be held and taken care of by masculine men. Problem is the government has spent decades emasculating men. They've spent decades separating men and women, from their families. Overwhelmingly, it was originally started with the black community, and then of course they spread to other races, where you have such a high divorce rate. You have many men who are just not even dating. So you have a lot of men that in essence have no skin in the game. They have no families to protect. And so for a lot of them, especially because they've been emasculated for so long, you have all of this, there's no such thing as male and female, you've got the cis and all this other stuff, going around, especially when you look at the black community. Black community gets bombarded almost all the time. Like it's like every time a new movie comes out and there's a black man in the role, he's overwhelmingly homosexual. Look at the latest, what was it? Aladdin movie, where the genie is, what is it? Not a cis binary, whatever it is, male. You look at different movie stars that have been forced to play all these different roles, where they play roles as women. You look at, what is it? Little Nas X with his little pregnant scheme. Overwhelmingly, black men are just bombarded by propaganda from the left of emasculating men, putting a lot of these young men, especially rappers or individuals who do like clothing lines, etc. They put them in dresses, and it's for the purpose of emasculating men, so that men feel weak, don't want to fight back. And this is basically where we're at. And the problem, either way, in the scenario of communism, millions will die. Either way, most of them will die via starvation, because communism and food just don't mix. History has proven that. And of course, many will die as a result of the pandemic. Many will die from taking the vaccine. There'll be side effects, a couple of years down the road, and many people will unfortunately lose their lives. But overwhelmingly, many of these will lose their lives through policies. The whole defunding the police in many of these black neighborhoods typically results in many individuals dying. And so over time, the agenda, of course, is depopulation. And so on either spectrum, whether through the Great Reset or through a Great Revolution, American men will have to feel comfortable with the fact that many will die, either by your hands or as a result of inaction. It's just completely up to American men the route that they want to go. But this will not be solved with protesting. France has been protesting for like 8 weeks by the tens of thousands. You had like millions of people in Brazil that were protesting. Like you could see people as far as the eye could see in many of these countries. And it's not going to do anything, because a protest is only act one. A protest is stage one, to show people this is how many people we're working with, right? When you're standing before the enemy at the gate and you got your army behind you, it is to let them know this is what we're working with. But that's only step one. Step two is always violence. And if you're not willing to go the route of step two, you've already failed. It's just a matter of time. Government can wait you out. The government will starve you out. The government will see you be thrown out of your homes because you're thinking you're going to quit your jobs. You're thinking the court system is going to have your back. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And so people have to ask themselves, how far are they willing to go for freedom? Founding fathers had already said that freedom is only one generation away from being lost. It is not passed through blood. It is passed through the shedding of blood. That's the only way that Americans are going to find themselves on a different side of the pandemic.